Hello and welcome everybody to a very much rushed video. This was very much not a planned thing at all. As you can tell, I am currently at work. I've re-recorded this maybe 100 times or so. Probably not 100, but like definitely about good like 6 or 7 times. I don't know why the autofocus is being weird, but I have re-recorded this like 6 or 7 times because I'm trying to find the right thing I want to say, and I just couldn't really figure out the best way to phrase it. So actually, while at work, I just opened up OneNote and just started typing it out to make some sense of what I wanted to say, you know. And so, if you haven't read the title, obviously, which you should have if you're clicking on this, Rooster Teeth is coming back. Not in an official sense, kinda, but kinda is. I got a hiccup. I'm so excited. It is. They bought the channels. They bought the social media. They got the YouTube stuff. And when I say they, I mean Bernie Burns and Ashley have got the rights to it back, but they didn't get the LLC. They specifically on their podcast said that they got the channels. They said they didn't get it as the business because the business has like buildings and assets and things like that they couldn't get, but so and contracts. So they don't have. I don't believe they don't have the LLC of Rooster Teeth, but they definitely have the brand. So they have essentially the copyright for it. And this is exciting news. This is also very horrific news because it leads to a lot of speculation of what can we expect to see in the future, right? So what I did is I have typed up some questions that we're going to go into, and I'm going to present kind of like the answers, like not really the answers, but kind of like what do I feel the answer would be if there was a definitive answer, like, or if there was going to be close to an answer, what would it be, you know, not like anything outrageous. It's only a couple, not many. It's like 6 questions, and then I'm going to pose what I think the closest thing to a satisfying answer will be. And before anyone even gets it in their minds, Bernie has already said, do not go harassing or bothering or messaging former Rooster Teeth and Achievement Hunter employees. That is not going to be okay. You know, they're all doing their own things now. They're all freelancing. They're all starting their own entrepreneurships. So it is important to be kind and respectful to them. And if they have anything they want to say, or if there's anything they kind of want to announce, you know, it should be in their own time, on their own terms, and they shouldn't be, you know, have their arm twisted into saying something that maybe they shouldn't say, or, you know, just let them have some space and they will eventually say it if they want to, right? So good on Bernie for taking initiative on that and making sure to let everyone know that it is just temporary for right now, and that everyone needs to kind of back off and stay away. And there is going to be a lot of cuts in this video. I'm going to try to keep it down, but there might be a lot of cuts just because, again, I am at work, so things might pop up. Phone might ring. A technician might come up to the window. So if there's a cut, just assume it was because something came up that I had to cut out, right? So, or it could be I just made a mistake because I'm trying to read the questions and I mess something up, so I have to redo it. So just assume that it's just very poorly made, because that's usually the best way to get through any of these videos. So I'm gonna scroll to the first question. I'm excited. We want to get into questions, right? So the first question I have is, who all is coming back to Rooster Teeth, if at all? So I know I just said that we should leave them alone, but I'm kind of posing this question as like generally. It's a fairly easy question, but it's also complicated because right now the answer is nobody. Bernie Burns kind of commented on that, saying that he's talked to a bunch of them, but he hasn't really said that if he's bringing people back, right? So we know that Matt Hollum isn't coming back because he's got his own company now, right? So Bernie did say that they are going to be making a new, like a reimagining of the schedule, the first film that he made in 1997. So, and Matt Hollum was going to be brought on as a partner to make it, but he didn't say he was being brought on as an employee of the, of Rooster Teeth again. So it's only going to be in partnership. So it's going to be kind of like freelancing. I would take it, like, partnerships where you're not officially together, working on the project, but you're just, credited together for it. So that's what's happening there. We already know that part. But as far as I can tell, no one, nobody definitely has said anything about it. But if I had to guess, I would say you're definitely going to see Jeff come back, because Jeff was kind of like the father figure to all the little idiots running around, kind of like children. And he loved the company. He really did. You can tell that his tears were legitimate whenever there were layoffs, whenever there was unexpected layoffs at that, when they were closing, and he was talking about how happy he was to have worked with everybody and how much of a pleasure it was. You could tell he meant it, because Jeff is what I consider a very genuine person, even if he could be a little off the end on a couple things. He seems to me like a genuine individual. So I can see him coming back because he loved what Rooster Teeth was and what it was about and what all it stood for. So I could see him coming back. Maybe not as a full-time employee again, but I could see him bringing regulation gameplay in, kind of like to freelance the gameplay aspect of things. So that way they have more content under themselves to kind of start building a new base. And then if anything happens, he can take regulation gameplay and just hike it if he wanted to, right? I can see Gavin Free coming along because he goes basically where Jeff goes. So I can see Gavin coming back. I can see Gus coming back because I don't really think Gus would want to do anything else. He had it pretty comfy at Rooster Teeth. So I feel like he'd want to go back to that. And I can see Jack going back. I would not be happy if Jack came back because he was a lot of the problems with the Achievement Hunter side and the Rooster Teeth side with a lot of the things he was doing and saying online. But, if he came back, fine, so be it. He was one of the founders, and Bernie did say he wants to go back to the roots. And I don't see going back to the roots any more than having the core people who founded the company. Jeff, Jack, Bernie, Matt, and Gavin. He wasn't there at the beginning, but he was essentially there at the beginning, like really close. So I'd consider him like a starting foundation, like a support pillar, really. One with a big nose, but still, he was there. So I would say he's pretty much like an honorary founder of the company since he was there for so long. I think that's really kind of the definitive answer is if anyone was coming back, you're most certainly going to have people like Jeff, Jack, Gavin, and Gus. That was their baby. So it makes sense they would want to go back to take care of the thing that they worked almost, over 20 years to to build. But I could be wrong. Maybe they said it's just not worth it. And, Jeff with regulation gameplay has stuff going on. I think Jack moved to Australia, right? So he's not even in the US anymore, I don't think. So he might not even be able to come back. And then, Gavin obviously will go wherever Jeff goes. So if Jeff goes back to Rooster Teeth with Bernie, great. But if not, they still have regulation gameplay. So they'll be covered there. And, Bernie's just kind of out on a couple people. But I can definitely kind of see Gus going back because really he did do a lot there, even if it didn't really seem like it. He did do a lot, and he had a really comfy position. So I feel like he would want to go back to that because he's very antisocial, and that job allowed him to not really deal with a whole lot of people, or at least when it did, it wasn't for very long, right? So we're going to go on to question 2, which is, what assets and IPs were they able to acquire? they were very vague on this. They were saying that they got much of it back, but we already know like Rooster Teeth had like 60, well, not 60, probably like 30 or 40 different IPs under them, you know, like different shows. You had Red versus Blue, Rubies, Camp, Nomad of Nowhere, Genlock. I didn't watch all of them, so you gotta forgive me here. But then they had like all the stuff with Funhouse and Couch Hop and all. You know, they had a lot of content, right? That was theirs. And to say they got much of it back would imply that they got a whole lot. But in Bernie's podcast, he said that they didn't get as much. Like, you know, he's like, we didn't get Ruby, we didn't get this or that because they all got sold. Like he said, like I don't know what he said. Like he said, like it got sold to Vivs or Vizzy or something like that. I don't know what he said or who it is he's referring to, but it makes it sound like he only got a few. He definitely said they got the RT podcast. He definitely said they got Red versus Blue. If you go to the Rooster Teeth website, you can actually see Camp on there too. So they might have gotten Camp. I don't know if they're going to continue it or if that was just kind of they happened to get it like it was a package deal. So they might have gotten Camp, Red versus Blue, and the RT podcast, which is great. But I don't know what else they could have gotten because a lot of the comments said that a lot of the different podcasts, like Off Topic or like Always Open, I think it was Always Open. I didn't watch that one often. The Spot and all that stuff, those all were sold to their respective creators or something like that. Like they respectively bought their podcasts and shows. So maybe Bernie can bring these people back and bring those shows with him. That's definitely an option. But I don't think that's what happened. It definitely sounds like a lot of the content got sold and is no longer retrievable, or at least he's going to have one heck of a time fighting to get those back, right? So that kind of leads me to ask you this. Of all the shows that they had on Rooster Teeth, what is one that you wish would come back? If I had to answer personally, I would say Immersion. I know they canceled that show a long time ago, but Immersion was so freaking good. I loved everything about Immersion. I liked the cheap way they haphazardly did everything. I liked that they put, you know, two idiots into this, you know, who were gamers, but just, you know, really just some of the worst gamers possible, and put them into it and made them try to recreate what we see in video games. Like the Mario side scroller that was like from like 11, 13 years ago, man. Those were just some of the best videos that they had at the time, and they were really funny. And the creative ways that they managed to make the videos was really fun. Like the third person driving where they took Bernie's truck and put a camera behind and they had to drive it from the camera in the rear. That was also just really good. So if it was for me, I would say Immersion. That would get my vote every single time. Even though they had like really good shows, I think it should be Immersion. But, you know, maybe you have one that's different. Maybe you have one that's even better than Immersion. So definitely comment that below and let's discuss that and see which one wins out in the end, right? And we'll go to question number 3, which is, are they hiring or are they going to try to get back as much of the old crew as possible? Now, this kind of ties in with the first question of how many of the original people are coming back. And the reason I ask it this way, essentially a second time, is because is Bernie actually going to try to get original crew members back? Or is he just foregoing it, saying, look, if they want to reapply, they can, but I need to focus on just getting people in right now. I can't afford to go hunting you down. You know, like, what is the situation that's going on? Are they going to be actively hiring within the next few weeks? Are they waiting to see how many original crew members they can get back before they try to, you know, send out lists on, like, I don't freaking know, what do you get jobs on? Like, Ryan said he got jobs on Craigslist. I don't even know if Craigslist is still open. But, like, you know, Indeed. I think Indeed is one of them. You know, are they going to start putting job listings out on that? Or is it going to be just kind of word of mouth, and you just need to know who to talk to apply, like what all is the plan here, because they didn't mention that, because I don't think they're in that plan or in that phase yet where they can officially start hiring people. But I think it might be good to at least announce to some degree what the plan is. Like, are you planning on getting as many originals back first and then opening up some positions to see where things go? Or are you going to keep it small and you're just right now working out the details of where you're going to be? Because I don't know if they're getting stage 5 back. I don't know if they're getting stage 5 back or what, but this is again to be determined whenever, right? So we don't know anything, but I just think it's kind of a fair question to ask of how hard are they going to be pushing for people to hire. Because I looked online, by the way. I did look. Went into the Austin area online and looked for job applications for media production companies. I looked under RoosterTeeth, and I looked under Bernie's independent company, Box Canyon Productions. Didn't see anything. So unless they haven't officially put out job listings yet, it could be that Bernie is just right now stalling for time, trying to get some former employees in, because right now at the stage that they're at, getting Rooster Teeth back, they're going to be definitely really critical of who they need, because they're going to need the people with experience, right? Because they're going to need to make sure that the content they're pumping out is of some decent quality, right? So having those original crew members that have the experience of what their gold standard was, they're going to want to have that back. And I do not blame them. It would be the first thing I'm doing too if I was in that position, as I would be, mailing out or sending text messages saying, hey, we're getting the company back. Are you interested in coming back? Are you interested in going for round 2? I don't know if a lot of people would be down for it, especially with how massively downhill Rooster Teeth went, but it would definitely be something to consider and worth watching the job postings online in Austin, Texas, to see when they're hiring, what they're hiring for, and how much they're paying. Because I don't know, it might be good, might be slop, because they don't have their big name anymore, so they might not be able to pay as much as they used to. So we'll see. And that actually kind of leads into the fourth question, which is, are they going to be hiring and accepting remote work, or is it going to be strictly in office, meaning like on site, right? And I ask that because, considering that Jack left and I think went to Australia, it does beg the question of, would they be willing to accept remote work? Because there's going to be a lot of the people who worked for Rooster Teeth moved. And, they're going to need video editors. They're going to need audio editors. They're going to need, technical support. So is any of that something that they can do remotely, like off-site from, away from stage 5 or wherever they choose to go? And are they going to be hiring for that position, or is it going to be strictly, nope, has to be here in stage 5 or wherever we choose to go? We need people in person. And the reason I think that might be the way they're going to go is because of the Ryan and Kovic incident, where people who we thought were good had malicious or just some nasty intent behind it, right? And so outside of the company's influence, they were able to act in despicable ways. I mean, Kovic wasn't really even despicable. He was just really gross with what he did. It was kind of a violation of trust and hygiene more than it was anything else. It was a really dangerous thing that he shouldn't have done, whereas the other one was blatant manipulation and abuse of his power as a celebrity. But, tomatoes. So is that incident going to make it just nigh impossible for remote work in an industry that really could benefit, or I think does benefit from remote work? If you have old employees who are like probably some of the best in their field, and they're just like in North Carolina or something like that, are you really going to say they can't have a job and work remote just because they're not in Texas? It's Austin, Texas, especially. It's one of those, you got to weigh the pros and the cons, right? How good of a worker are they, and is allowing them to work remote going to be beneficial? Because there's a lot of cons that come with it. Again, being able to act out of the influence of the company, and not only that, but being with the company again makes your status a little bit more important than, say, someone like me. Because I'm of the mindset that people like Jack, Michael, Jeremy, Miles, Luna, and several others who are all very big online presences for Twitter, when it was Twitter, they were making a lot of dangerous comments. They were making some very dangerous and very illegal comments. And I feel like as a company, Rooster Teeth should have put them on a leave, a mandatory unpaid leave, because with their popularity, it definitely 100% affects the company. And it did, because obviously they shut down as a result of how they were acting on social media and how they were acting with their content, right? So I feel like they need to have a tighter grip on their associates' behavior and really just get them in line, saying, with this form of work, you need to be held more accountable than some Joe Blow off the street, not say like me, but like, or even me, I'm not an important person. I'm just a nobody that works within a company of a couple hundred. So if I say something online, yeah, they might pull me into the office and, don't say that again. It could hurt the company. If someone sees it and doesn't like it, they might not come here anymore. But when you have a multi-million-dollar company like Rooster Teeth, who has a lot of celebrity faces, people who are technically worshipped by some of the fans, where the ground they walk on is treated as holy ground, I feel like they need to be brought in a little bit more into control and told, you cannot say certain things that may be really risque, or really out there. Can't remember his name now, the guy who voiced Caboose. Joel Hyman. Yeah, he was out there, and yeah, he was a conservative, and yeah, I might be a conservative, but yeah, a lot of the things he said was definitely out there, and if I was his boss, being a conservative that I am, I wouldn't have agreed with him. I just sat there and said, look, you might be right in what you're saying, but that does not give you, you need to think about the company that you're representing with your popularity. I personally am of the mindset that when I'm off the clock, I don't represent the company, but I'm also aware that I'm not a celebrity. When you are a celebrity, you almost always represent the brand. You almost always represent the company. You always are representing who pays you, because you're a celebrity and you're only known as the brand that you work for. You're not known for you, you're known for the brand. If you didn't work for that company, you're a nobody. So because you work for that company, you're a somebody, you need to act like, as neutral as possible. It's not saying you can't have your own opinions, but you got to be toned down. You got to bring it down a couple pegs and think logically and reasonably, right? And I think that's where they messed up. For one, is they had a bunch of employees saying some really crazy things and some really dangerous things, and they never at any point tried to pull them in. In fact, they actually empowered them to say it more. And we see how that went. So maybe it's just me, but there's definitely pros and cons to remote work, where anytime you can have an employee outside of your influence and just outside of your controllability, it's definitely dangerous for their line of work, because they deal with people, fanboying and fangirling over them. So you definitely got to be more careful with that, especially with the Ryan incident, where his popularity was allowing him to act out. Even if he wasn't on company time, it was under a company's representation that he was able to do what he did, because he was on company business when he went out and did some of those things, even if he wasn't on the clock. It was because the company had him out there for what they needed, not to encourage him to do what he did, right? You know, if he didn't travel around like he did, he wouldn't have done half of the crap he did. So it's definitely a dangerous catch-22. Dang if you do, dang if you don't kind of situation. But, you know, I believe they're going to go strictly to work from the office. It's not going to be remote in any way, shape, or form, but I think they should consider it and weigh the pros and cons very heavily, just to make sure they get the most out of what they're trying to bargain for. Because if they can get some of the old workers back and have them work remotely, I'm having a seizure. If they can have them work remotely, that is valuable assets that they desperately need now that they're trying to get their foot back underneath them, you know? So it would be critical to get as many of the old people back in, just because of the experience they have alone. And so if working remote is one of the ways they can do that, I think they should entertain the idea, right? And that's all I'm saying. I wouldn't sit there and really try applying myself as much as I love video editing. I think it needs to go to people who are far better than me and have experience and would help the company grow, instead of just trying to be selfish about it like I would, because I would want to join or work for them because I've always wanted to, but it would be for a selfish reason, for me to get what I want. But if they can get some of the older people, I think they should highly consider doing it, just so that way they can get that talent back that helped them for so many years to make the content that they made. And then I guess we'll go ahead to go to question number 5, which is, what content are they planning to produce? Like said before, they do not have a lot under their belt right now, because they are still working on buying and obtaining more assets from the former, you know, IPs. But we know for a fact that we have the RT podcast, so we can be looking forward to having that with some guests. We know we have Red versus Blue, but I'm not sure we're going to get any more. I think that's done. I'm pretty sure Bernie just grabbed it because it's his legacy. It's one of his legacies. And if I was in his position, I would do the same thing. I would not want to let my legacy die without being in my control, right? So he can now choose to continue it, or he can choose to let it rest peacefully and know that no one's ever going to try to do any more with it and possibly ruin it, or, you know, make radical changes that he would not have approved of, right? So he gets to protect his legacy, which I think is a really good idea. Like I said, you can see on the website, it has Camp on there, so I guess we can get a continuation of Camp. That would be really cool. And then they announced on their Morning Somewhere podcast that they have some other new IPs or new projects that they're going to be working on. So that's something we can look forward to. They definitely have stuff that they are planning, so we know we at least have a little bit of content that we can really kind of savor when the time comes. I don't know what all they're going to get, but like I said, I would like to have immersion, because it's a simple idea that can be done very cheaply, because you can nitpick the really small details of what you're wanting to do and it be cost effective, right? And it'd be entertaining too, which would bring in revenue. But that's just me. What do you guys think would be coming back, or what do you think they might have planned? You know, a lot of people pay more attention to this than I do, so maybe I'm missing something, but if you know a little bit more, what do you think they're going to do? Because this is an interesting subject to talk about, and I'm excited to see what they're going to go forward with, if anything at all, right? And that'll lead us finally into the last question, which is question 6, which is, I think, one that we've all really been wondering, which is, let me make it so that way I can actually read this. Have they learned from their last mistakes, or from their previous mistakes, rather? I want to hope so. That's the answer, is I want to hope so. When Bernie stopped being the CEO the first time, I think Matt Holland was always the CEO, but when Bernie stopped being the one in control, it went downhill really bad. And when Warner Brothers ultimately got their hands on it, it went so far down it hit the ground with a splat. All right, there was a crater where it landed. Right, it went so far off the rails and hit the ground so hard. There's a crater. Um, I don't know if they've learned from their mistakes, because, and the reason I say this is Bernie is very proud of who he is and what he believes. If he does not believe anything that happened before was a mistake, he is not going to learn, because to him those might have been good business decisions at the time. That might have been the only decision he could have made, good or bad. It was the only choice. So if he doesn't believe it was a mistake, he's not going to learn anything, right? So it's a matter of, did he learn that you cannot use diversity hires to make content? And it's not to say that you can't have diversity, but by hiring explicitly for diversity, not only are you committing a federal crime, which says you can't do that, but you are also saying that we don't want a merit-based system where we want people who are qualified to make the content. We just want people who represent the minority, so that way we have representation. You know, and take all these airplane crashes, for example, that's been going on. Diversity hires that were not properly qualified to fly these planes. People are dying because they had diversity over qualification. And when you are a entertainment company, you need quality, not quantity. And you most certainly don't need diversity when it's not going to be good, right? If you can assure the people, or if you can guarantee that the diversity can help make it quality, fine, sure. But it never works that way. So did they learn that lesson, that you can't just diversity hire people and expect everyone to just blindly go along with it? And the second thing is, did Bernie learn that injecting your political beliefs is not important? Because that's what really ended Rooster Teeth, was their constant injection of political BS that no one wanted, no one asked for, and the constant alienation of their viewers. You know, when they went from like 10 million subscribers down to 9, that should have been a really good indication that they needed to stop. When Achievement Hunter went from like 7 to 5 million, really should have been a good indication to stop. You know, when you lose millions of people because you keep insulting them and their political beliefs, it makes things worse. It never makes it better. No one's going to be like, oh, thank you for insulting me. I love that, right? So did they learn this mistake? I don't know, because Bernie, like I said, is a very proud person of who he is and what he believes. I'm hoping he did, that he learned that maybe it should not be about politics. Maybe politics can just stay out and take a backseat, right? Because no one wants it. We watch these videos to get away from reality. We don't watch them to continue to stay in this reality that we might not even like, right? So I'm hoping he learned. I don't know if he did, but I'm hoping beyond hope. I'm praying to everything above that just please learn the lesson that you can't diversity hire everybody into making something good, and you cannot sit there and inject politics, especially controversial politics, into every single video for years after year after year after year. It just does not work. Nobody likes it, right? So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think you know better? Do you think you know less? I have no idea. Let me know in the comment section below. And while I still have a little bit of time left, because my recording's about to stop on me, I'm going to say that's it for today. It was definitely sudden. It was definitely a shocking reveal that Rooster Teeth is back. I don't know what all is going to happen now that they are back. I'm excited to see where things go. I'm terrified to see where things go. You know, it's a bunch of emotions at the same time. And I'm sure everyone, you know, there's a lot of people also in that mix of not really knowing what's going to happen or why. And it's just, you know, it's a very unnerving feeling, but it's also an exciting dread, right? You know, it's like an adrenaline rush. You know, you're excited, but you're terrified. So I guess the question is, if they were hiring remote, would you take it? What IPs do you think should come back and why? Who do you think is going to come back? And pretty much that's it. What are you excited for? What are you not excited for? What are you hoping happens? And what are you hoping doesn't happen? I don't know. This is all very new, very sudden, very exciting. But I will see you all in the next one. Take it easy.